So for these we have, you'll see right here, that adding. Let's just go over each one by one. Ga, gi, gu, ge, go, za, ji, zu, ze, zo, da, di, do, de, do, ba, bi, bu, be, bo, pa, pi, pu, pe, po. I know it gets very confusing, but at least compared to the English language, it can get very confusing. In English, you only have 26 letters, but there is a near infinite amount of ways to mix those letters together, not to mention all the different ways that those letters can be pronounced. So English is also complicated and difficult to keep track of, just in a different way. Oh, there's more. There's more small ones down here. I'm so glad I scrolled down before I started saying any of them. So small characters with bigger characters used to make different sounds. Here we have ki and ya, with ya being smaller, and when we put ki and ya together, we get kya. And you'll see this pattern with pretty much all of these sounds moving forward. So here we have kya, kyu, kyo, sha, shu, sho, cha, chu, cho, nya. Oh, that's supposed to say mu, not nya. I'm so glad I caught that just now. Kinda dumb of me, but oh well. Nyu, nyo. Hya, hyu, hyo. Mya, mu, myo. Rya, ryu, ryo. And we have gyo, gyu. No, that's gya. This is supposed to be gya. Oh, this is why you always review your notes again and again. Because if you make mistakes like this, you can come back and change them and fix them. Alright, let's start again. Gya, gyu, gyo, ja, ju, jo, bya, byu, byo, pya, pyu, pyo. And here we have a note of the small su. Suppose I should have an example of that. So for the words or feeling of so cool, I believe in Japanese that would be kakkoi. And here in kakkoi, we see that there are two K's in the middle. But how do you represent two K's? Because as I showed earlier... Oh, it's raining outside. As I showed earlier, is the only sound in Japanese that ends with a consonant. So if you want to write kakkoi, oh, I guess there are two E's in there. Then you use a small su before the consonant that needs to be doubled. Let's see, what's another example of the small su and the double consonant that I could talk about. I think school is pronounced as gakko. So, gakko. So it brings up the kanji here. But that's another example of how the small su could be used to make a double consonant. Can you hear that rain? Oh my god. That's so insane. Anyway, now that we've gone over the hiragana and the katakana and some rules containing the smaller characters, we can start going over what the Genki book has. Basically what I've been doing is going from lesson to lesson and taking notes. There are also pages in the book that have vocabulary words, but I'm going to go back to those at a later date and time. Also, with the physical copies of the books, you get CDs where... Un momento. Water. Anyway, in the physical copies, you get CDs where you can do listening practice. But I do not have that CD. So, in a sense, my notes will be incomplete without those. It may be possible to find them online, but I don't know how legal that would be, so for now I'm going to avoid it. Anyway, we're starting with Genki Book 1. And the first thing we learn about is the particle wa and ending a sentence with des. See. Wa is used to identify the topic of the sentence. So, this example sentence here of watashi wa dansei desu means I am a man. I is the subject of the sentence. Dansei means man. Since you are the subject and you are saying man, you the subject are a man. Or the topic. But a lot of the time in Japanese, sentences will not start with the topic. So sometimes watashi wa will just be completely cut from the beginning. I'm sure there will be more examples of that later. But if someone were to ask you, are you a man? You could just reply them with man desu or dansei desu. And it would be implied that since you were the one speaking and they asked you that question, that watashi wa would be before that. So, in English that would be like deleting the I am and just saying a man, but it's still implied that I am is at the beginning. And next we have question sentences. To turn a sentence into a question, you add ka to the end of it. There are also times where a question sentence will start with something like the word nani. And here we have an example of omitting watashi wa from the beginning to explain something. This says ryugakusei desu, which means an exchange student, or I am an exchange student. But then when you add ka to the end of it, ryugakusei desu ka? You are asking someone, an exchange student, or are you an exchange student? Or are they an exchange student? Now I should note here that so far, and for the next few lessons moving forward, we're learning about particles. A particle is a part of a sentence that it tells you what part of the sentence it is, or helps give hints for... It's difficult to explain. I think there's an explanation later, but here you see with no that it's a particle that connects to nouns. Basically it's one noun taking ownership of another noun. So Takeshi-san no, I think it's Denki Bango, so Takeshi's phone number. And Daikaku no sensei means like college teacher or college professor. If you were to introduce yourself and give your name to someone, you would be like, Watashi no namae wa Nozomi desu. So that's another way of using the no particle. Now here the particle mo means something like to. It describes a noun that is similar to another thing. Here we have Takashi-san wa Nihonjin desu. Yuri-san mo Nihonjin desu. So Takeshi and Yuri are both Japanese. And this person is describing that to... Well, this sentence is describing that to the listener. Now we've moving on from particles for a bit to talk about janai desu. Janai or nai basically is a part of a Japanese word that means not, is not, am not, are not. It's a negative way of saying something. There's some more... The book gave a more formal way of saying it with ja arimasen or dewa arimasen. But that's I do believe that's more typically used with more polite style of speech called keigo. Keigo is something that's talked about in the books way later on, so we don't need to worry about that too much for now. But with these examples we have here, we have Yamada-san wa gakusei janai desu. Mr. Yamada is not a student. And then with the conservative and more formal way, we have Yamada-san wa gakusei ja arimasen, which is more conservative. When you use a conservative speech like this, it's typically for when you're speaking to someone who's in a higher position to you. Like higher up at a company. And then with this last one, Yamada-san wa gakusei dewa arimasen is said to be formal and more appropriate for writing. Like if you're writing a letter to someone and describing another person, then you would use dewa arimasen.